Looking right around Huntley. He reaches. Oh, that ball's out. That's live. Back the other way. Sam Hubbard. The Cincinnati Kid. Hubbard's got a convoy. Chased by Andrews. At the 30. The 20. He will score.
To the end zone. Down the field. And it is deflected. And gone. Touchdown. A.J. Green.
Goes back to throw. Men are coming late. Looks right down the middle. There's Eddie Brown. He has it at the 35 to the 30. He may go 10-5. Touchdown.
Now the Bengals Super Bowl chances rest on his right foot. The kick is up.
Yeah.
It is good.
Corey Dillon. He's gone. The knockout punch. You're looking at it. 65 yards.
And they're back to throw as the blitz is on. Goes long, intended for Collinsworth. He has it down to the 20. Touchdown. And Chris Collinsworth.
Throwing the long ball. Deep down the field. Johnson's got it. Touchdown. Cincinnati.
Look at Chase go. Oh my goodness, what a gear he just found. Case for the touchdown. Wow, Chase is on the case.
It is no fluke. It is a fact. The Cincinnati Bengals are headed to Super Bowl 56. The play clock at 3. Shotgun snap. Carr throws into traffic. Intercepted. Jermaine Pratt has the football.
Yeah.
Coffin nails.
Bam, bam, bam. How about that?
And maybe, there it is. There it is. We hear it, I think. I think we're good to go. And we're ready.
Awesome.
Welcome on into Chatterbox Sports. We are Chatterbox Bengals tonight.
That's right.
With Jacob Tissett. We are here with Casey McAllister, myself, Elliot Rearing. If you've never been here before, this is our second time doing this. This is our week 2, as it were. This is week 3 in the NFL, but week 2 for us. We come in here every other Thursday.
That's right.
We do a Chatterbox Bengals. We're talking all things Cincinnati Bengals today. If you don't know about us, we are Chatterbox Sports based out of Hamilton, Ohio. It's a little media company from Hamilton, Ohio. It's always a pleasant drive from Cincinnati, Ohio to Hamilton. A good hour and a half with all the traffic and construction on the way from Cincinnati to Hamilton. I mention it every single time. But everybody, welcome on in. It's a beautiful day, a beautiful Thursday. Got the best Thursday night football game of the year.
That's
perhaps.
right. Patriots,
Two great
Jets.
teams.
What's better than Patriots, Jets?
Yeah.
Two electric offenses.
Anything's better than this
right.
game. But Jacob, Casey, how are we doing today?
I mean, we're doing great. We're
You
doing
look
absolutely
great.
fantastic.
When do the glasses come back on?
Oh, the sunglasses? I
Yeah.
got them right here.
I'm
I
just
got 'em
waiting.
right here. Here we go. Here we go.
On top of the other glasses? That's
yeah,
a good
I forgot
look.
to wear my contacts, so I can't really wear the
That's
sunglasses.
6 eyes.
But
That's a good look.
I think I'm going to roll with this for the rest
Yeah,
of the day.
I think that looks great.
There's
Yeah.
nothing better than every other Thursday when we get to come out to Champions. Because you talked about your 45-minute drive from out here to Hamilton.
That's
well,
right.
The wonderful thing is I live all the way over in Kenwood. So it's
Oh.
a nice hour drive for me after this. But there's nowhere I'd rather be than right here with all of you guys.
Yeah, it's a great day. Listen, we're also live on YouTube. For those of you who don't know, we're live on YouTube every
That's right.
single day from 10 to 12 a.m. Chatterbox Sports, check out the YouTube channel. If you are unavailable at that time, we're on the radio, ESPN 1410, Wing AM in Dayton from 1 to 3.
If anyone took me up on my 2 devices for a beer offer,
There we
feel
go.
free to prove that, and I'll go ahead and get you taken care of after the show.
So before we start, a little bit of inside baseball here. My table right in front of me, I got the 5 biggest Chatterbox fans of all time.
That's right.
This table right here is fantastic. Thank you guys for coming. We love you and very much. We got Lewis over there. Lewis, you came in, I see, like 30 minutes late. No table for you guys over there in the corner. But you tried your best. Thank you guys for coming. Our families are in the front.
That's right.
I told my mom and my grandparents, sit as far in the back as you could. They said, nope, we're going to go right into the front and we're going to embarrass them. I like that plan.
My mom's right up front, too, so you're not alone.
We got all the family members right here. Casey, your family listened to you. My family didn't listen to me. So we got Casey's family out there in the back as well.
That's right.
So welcome on in. We're talking about the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals have started 0-2. We're going to start on a bad note. The Cincinnati Bengals have started 0-2 for the past 3 seasons now. Joe Burrow is 1-9 in weeks 1 and 2. Zach Taylor is 1-11 in the first 2 weeks during his tenure. He has done a lot of good during his time as Bengals head coach, but the trend of starting incredibly slow is a legitimate area of concern. Guys, is this a Zach Taylor and coaching staff issue, or is this a how about players can be ready when the season starts kind of issue?
I don't like necessarily talking about the 2024 slow start in the same way as the last 2 years. I know at some point over a 3-year stretch when you have the same issues keep coming up, you're going to lump them all together. But the other 2 years are so drastically different than this year, and that's why this year is such a big problem, because the last 2 years, you've been able to point to a Joe Burrow injury in both seasons, causing him to miss significant amounts of the offseason and not be able to prep for the season. So a slow start in week 1 or week 2 is moderately as expected. That's basically exactly what you would expect from a guy that's not going through camp as a young NFL player who still needs to get, a lot of reps under his belt. When he was drafted as a rookie, his rookie season in 2020, that was the COVID offseason.
Yeah.
So he was healthy then, but there was no offseason program for him to go to. This was the first offseason program that he's went through start to finish, and he looked really good in camp. All reports coming out of camp were that he was healthy, that he was throwing the ball well, flying colors, great reports. But then we get to week 1. We see Joe messing with his wrist. We see the famous water bottle pickup video.
The water bottle.
I pick up my water like that
just
every day.
Like this, just like this.
But that combined with the poor play just lets everyone freak out about the injuries again, because we've seen that derail the Bengals seasons for years in the past. I think this season's a lot different, and I think this season does fall on Zach Taylor. You knew going into the offseason that T. Higgins' contract was going to be an issue. If you were going to bring Jamar Chase an extension offer like the Bengals reportedly did, you knew that was going to be an issue you had to deal with. Zach Taylor should have had a way to work around all this stuff going into the offseason, and he certainly doesn't seem like he had the guys ready to go.
Casey, the frustration you have as the biggest Bengals fan I know, as the Bengals, again, can't get it done in weeks 1 and 2.
It was very frustrating. Very, very frustrating. I could take away a million different negatives, Elliot, but the one positive thing I will take away from this is that out of all those seasons, this year, Joe Burrow looks the best he's been in the first 2 weeks.
That's
at
right.
least. I mean, that's the one positive that you can take away from this. They look like they're ready to go for week 3 matchup versus the Commanders. I'll say that the team itself, there's 21 other positions besides the quarterback, so that's a problem. You got to get those guys ready too. But I mean, as of this moment, it feels like they're ready to go for week 3. I don't have any concerns as of this moment with the team.
And I don't know that I felt that way last year going into a Monday night game against the Rams.
That's right.
I was much more worried about where the Bengals stood going into week 3 last year at 0-2 than I am now. And I know we don't want to take moral victories, but going into Kansas City and losing by 1 on a questionable pass interference call is about as big of a moral victory as you can get, especially after how bad we looked against the Patriots in week 1. My optimism is almost all the way back to where it was preseason.
And the Patriots, too. I think a lot of Bengals fans, including myself, overlooked the Patriots completely.
That's right. I did, too. I sat here on this very desk and told you guys it was going to be an easy game.
That's right. It just felt a lot like that Texans game last season, right before C.J. Stroud took over the world. But I don't know. I think there's going to be a time to be concerned, and that will be maybe after Monday night. We'll get into that in a little bit. But to be more positive, Joe Burrow, 6-1-1. 6-1-1 during weeks 3 and 4 in his career. He has a 13 touchdown to 3 interception ratio during those weeks. Average quarterback rating of 100. He looked much better. He looked improved last week, as both of you just said. 258 yards, 2 touchdowns against the Chiefs. He was able to move the ball downfield more than he was against the Patriots. However, there are still little moments where it seems, especially when he's in the pocket, and the pocket starts to collapse just even a little bit, not even a full collapse. Like there's a little glimpse of a collapse, and Burrow freaks out. And he starts to scramble, and he starts to run, and he doesn't trust the linemen. Are there any trust issues between Joe Burrow and his linemen, or is this just an injury thing? He just doesn't want to get hurt at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we saw is a Joe Burrow that's 95%.
Exactly.
Right? I think that's the biggest key here, is that this isn't something that's permanent. I think he's still getting adjusted. He's still getting ready for game speed, right? And it showed up versus the Kansas City Chiefs, which have a great defense. It's a championship-level caliber defense, a top-5 defense. That team, I mean, the way that Joe Burrow played, you expect some mistakes. There was just some that were a little head-scratching, right? The overthrow to Yoshi, fumbling for the touchdown there. Those are just mistakes that Joe doesn't usually make. And I just don't think he was quite ready all the way. He's like 95%. But with an extra week, I think that he's at that 100% range now.
Again, 1-9. Joe Burrow is 1-9. Weeks 1 and 2. Weeks 3 and 4, 6, 1-1. Jacob, are there any doubts in your mind that we have our healthy Joe Burrow back?
No, I really don't think there's any worries there. All the issues I saw with Joe over the weekend, as negative as it might sound, were mental.
Yeah.
I didn't think there were very many physical issues. He had an inability to step up in the pocket. Like you said, when it started to deteriorate even just a little bit, he would get out of there. He seemed uncomfortable. And that's what made Joe Burrow so great at LSU and into the first few years of him in the pros, is his ability to just take pressure. He steps up in the pocket, and the guys hit him, and it doesn't matter. He can still deliver the football through contact, and that's what made him so great, because he's not the fastest, he's not the best runner, he doesn't have the strongest arm, but he's the most accurate, and he can stand in the pocket longer than just about anyone. So far this year, we haven't quite seen it. I think it's coming. I think part of that is the lack of trust in Trent Brown. The O-line has played great, and I know we're going to talk about that here in a bit, but Trent Brown has been a real issue at right tackle. He was a guy we signed from the Patriots that was supposed to fill that gap, and he hasn't done so. He's been pretty poor through the first 2 weeks. We need Amarius Mims healthy very, very soon, and he'll slide into that role, and the O-line's going to get much better, and that'll let Joe Burrow relax a little bit back there.
Now, part of the passing game, a successful passing game usually has a successful running game.
That's right.
That goes along with it. A concern for many Bengals fans has been the lack of running the football. Zach Moss and Chase Brown, they have a combined 28 rushes through the first 2 weeks. For reference, Josh Jacobs of the Green Bay Packers, he ran it 32 times last week alone. The Bengals have never been a run-first team. They're never built to be a run-first team. But at the same time, there has to be a balanced split between passing and running to have the offense look cohesive. Do you expect that to change in the coming weeks, or will this still be the Joe Burrow pass-heavy offense show?
Yeah, I think that's always going to be the case when Joe Burrow's your quarterback. We're always going to be a pass-first team, but why we let Joe Mixon go and replace him with Zach Moss and Chase Brown is because with those limited amount of rushes, we have to be more efficient.
Yeah.
Joe Mixon is not a very efficient runner, as great as the numbers at the end of the season looked. Those all add up together through a ton of carries, and it gets him to that point where he's a top 5, top 10 rusher in the league. These guys are going to be able to seize just as many yards, just as many as explosive plays with less touches. I don't necessarily think we're ever going to get close to a 50-50 offense, passing and rushing. I would love to see more of a 50-50 carry split between Chase Brown and Zach Moss, but I think these guys, as they get more comfortable in the system, as Zach Taylor and Dan Pitcher realize more what they have in this offense, because without T. Higgins, the offense that they've been practicing with all offseason hasn't been out there weapons-wise. You have a new guy in Mike Gesicki. You have a rookie in Eric All at tight end who's playing a lot. Second-year guys at receiver and a rookie in Jermaine Burton. You're trying to work in there more and more. These are a lot of guys that Burrow and the offensive coaches haven't worked with yet. They don't necessarily know how to scheme them, what they do best, and how to get them open and maximize their talents. I think it just takes a few weeks. It certainly is tough to lose to the Patriots, but I don't think anyone's acting crazy if the offense doesn't look great against the Chiefs in Kansas City week 2. And it did, which I think is a great sign for how it's going to be the rest of the year.
100%. And I think the concern was when you lose Joe Mixon, what will that running game look like?
Right.
Many people thought Chase Brown was going to take that next step. Casey, do you expect Chase Brown at some point during this season to be used, I don't want to say more than Zach Moss, but at least at the same level of Zach Moss?
I mean, I certainly hope so. I mean, you just saw a lot of explosive plays from him last season. And this season, he's kind of picked it right up where he left off. I mean, every single carry that he had against the Kansas City Chiefs went for over 7 yards. And that's more than what you would want from a change of pace back.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I think that Chase Brown deserves more touches. Maybe we'll see more touches this week. And it's not even just running the football either. Let's not forget that there's a whole other aspect to being a running back, and that's in the screen game, that's in the flats, that's getting the ball in the passing game, and we haven't really seen that either from him, which is just a real shame. So I'm hoping to see some more explosives from him moving forward.
Yeah,
he needs more touches.
Absolutely.
Chase Brown's a great change of pace back, like Casey just said right there. He's so fast, one of the fastest ball carriers in the league last year when he was getting seriously limited touches behind Joe Mixon. He needs to be used more, but I do wonder how much he might benefit from being that change of pace back. Being lulled to sleep with Zach Moss, pounding for 2-3 yards a carry, and then dropping Chase Brown in there with a little bit of surprise speed and being able to get 7 yards a carry. If you're getting 7 yards a carry, you should get more than 3 carries. But at the end of the day, I think Chase Brown will be used best as a running back too. but I don't necessarily know how that will when that running back 2 role stops and the running back 1 role begins, because I think that is the ceiling for Chase Brown.
That's fair. Switching over to the wide receiving room, or at least we'll call it the pass catching room, Mike Gesicki is the leading receiver through 2 weeks. I don't know if many of us had that on our bingo card. You actually did, I think.
Not leading receiver, don't give me that much credit, but I said he was going to be a good receiver for this team.
Trenton Irwin is the second worst graded wide receiver in football with a PFF grade of 47.4. It ranks 83rd out of 84 qualified wide receivers. 83rd out of 84. You have Jamar Chase, 10 catches, 97 yards, no touchdown. You have Jermaine Burton. You have 1 big catch out of Jermaine Burton, but not a lot. You saw the resurgence of Eric All last week against Kansas City from college. Joe Burrow talked about relying on the rookies. He mentioned 3 names: Eric All, Jermaine Burton, and Amarius Mims. Will you see more Eric All and Jermaine Burton going forward, given the struggles, at least on the surface of this wide receiving room?
Absolutely, no question about it. Those are 2 names that I think are already a few spots higher on the depth chart than they were to start the season. Eric All has been getting all those Tanner Hudson reps after an abysmal week 1 where he fumbled at the goal line. Tanner Hudson also not active at practice today. So that leads me to believe that we're going to continue to see more of Eric All as the 3rd tight end behind Sample and Gesicki. Gesicki, a great receiver. Drew Sample, a phenomenal blocker. Eric All really takes all that and meshes it together. He's the one true tight end in that room, and he's a great piece to have. And if you can have a guy who's a mid-round pick like Eric All come in and be a contributor right away, that's how you offset the effects of a $55 million quarterback contract. You hit on some of those non-first and second round picks and have them be contributors. That's absolutely crucial. You talked about Jermaine Burton on just 1 catch. He's the 3rd leading receiver on the Bengals.
Yeah.
On 1 catch. 1 catch for 47 yards.
It's wild.
That's the 3rd leading receiver on the Bengals. That's insane. Inexplicable. These guys, Andre Yoshivas and Charlie Jones, wherever he's been this year, were supposed to be guys that we were going to rely on as wide receiver 3s. We know T. Higgins doesn't play 17-game seasons. I love T. Higgins just as much as every other Bengals fan. But to rely on him to play a 17-game season is a little bit crazy to me, knowing what we know with how he plays the game and how injuries have already affected his career. So right now it seems like Jermaine Burton is the best at winning on these one-on-one routes. And I know the argument to that is, well, what else can he do? We've only seen him run streaks. Well, you already said Trenton Irwin was the 2nd worst PFF wide receiver. Trenton Irwin also gets 1.8 yards separation per target.
Ooh.
That ranks 112th out of 113th. League average is about 3 yards. So about 2 yards more than Trenton Irwin is getting as the average NFL receiver. It's just insane that the Bengals are trying to win a Super Bowl running Trenton Irwin on over 20 routes a game. It's just not a sustainable model, and he's not a good receiver. When you bump him down to wide receiver 6, 7, maybe even 5, I'll give him 5. He's not so bad.
Yeah,
he's a good piece to have.
He might be wide receiver 1 on the Patriots, but here on the Bengals, I'd like a wide receiver that's a little bit competent. Casey, Jacob mentioned T. Higgins back at practice today. Pretty notable. You're seeing what the Bengals offense looks without T. Higgins. How vital is it that he is back against the Commanders defense on Monday night?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, clearly the receivers in that room have just not been able to get it done. I feel like they need everyone there healthy. They need Jamar and they need T there healthy to be able to shine, to really be able to flourish, because a lot of the pressure will then be shifted to T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. They'll have better opportunities, one-on-one opportunities, and possibly even better than one-on-one opportunities, to be honest with you, to be able to get the football and be able to move in space, be able to make a difference in the football game. I think T. Higgins, when he's on the field, he takes away a lot of the pressure that's on Jamar Chase.
100%.
We're going to get into that a little bit more here. 10 catches, 97 yards, and no touchdown. Jamar Chase hasn't fallen off the face of the earth. He's just getting double covered every single play.
100%.
And every single day. So with T. Higgins, you get more and more opportunities without being double covered for Jamar Chase. That helps him. It gives the other receivers a chance to take a break and be able to work better in space. So T. Higgins coming back, great news for the Bengals.
Yeah.
Hopefully he's ready by Monday.
You mentioned Jamar Chase. I don't want to keep doing this every single time we have to do this show. Jamar Chase looks disgruntled. He looks like a guy who's frustrated visibly. You saw it in Kansas City, flinging the helmet against the ground. He's arguing with the referee. A massive 15-yard penalty cost the Bengals perhaps the game-winning drive. My biggest fear coming into the season was that Jamar Chase was going to have an attitude, was that he was going to be frustrated. And here's the thing. We all know the Bengals started it. The Bengals started this whole contract negotiation, and now unfortunately you're seeing what's happening when you don't follow through. The Bengals didn't follow through on the mess that they started, and now we have a wide receiver one who looks unhappy when he's out in the field. That's not the Jamar Chase that we need. Do you expect a different Jamar Chase against, again, an absolutely terrible Commanders secondary on Monday night?
Going into this season, this was a game I circled for Jamar on the year. Emmanuel Forbes is one of the worst corners in the league. He was the first-round pick for the Commanders last year. Well, now he's hurt. And if you're one of the worst corners in the league as a starter, what's your backup? So I certainly hope Jamar Chase can bounce back this week against the Commanders, but at this point, I don't know. And I'm really starting getting frustrated with the Bengals because this issue is starting to hang as a dark cloud over the whole season, and it's affecting wins and losses. And the Bengals are the ones that brought this negotiation to him. This is an issue that was put on the plate 2 years before, or a year before it had to, with 2 years left on his contract. The Bengals initiate these negotiations that no one expected, which is great in my book if you're going to get a deal done.
Yep.
And now you drag it out. You have some hold-ups about guarantees, ticky-tack stuff when it comes to the contract, just a few $1 million here and there. And when we're talking about a $140 million extension, that's pennies on the dollar. The Bengals needed to get Jamar Chase done, but now that that boat has passed, they need to figure out how to get him happy. Whether that's breaking their norms of the organization and getting a deal done in the middle of the season, or just sitting him down and talking to him and saying, hey, we screwed up this offseason, and next offseason when these negotiations start back up, we're going to come in with a different mindset. Either way, it needs to get done, and something needs to get fixed.
Yeah, Jacob, I agree with you, but I feel like the damage has already been done, right?
Right.
I think the biggest problem was that he caused that Chiefs, that terrible, terrible personal foul call, just mouthing off to the ref. Like, the damage is already done. I feel like he's enough of a leader to realize that you can't make the same mistake twice.
Right.
If it comes up again, oh, man. I mean, I don't know what we're going to do as just pundits of the game. I mean, probably kill him, to be honest with you. I mean, it would be horrible for him to have another incident like that. So I just don't expect it from Jamar to happen again. And plus, T. Higgins coming back, that's going to relieve some of the issues that are actually on the field. The Bengals, they just don't get contracts done. And that's why I feel like it's going to be very hard to make him happy other than just starting to win football games.
That's right.
You start winning football games, everything gets a lot better.
It does just seem...
Real quick, still on the T. Higgins,
You're
Jamar
good.
Chase. Bringing T. Higgins back is exactly what I think is going to free Jamar Chase up and get him back to playing the football we all expect. But I think that's a bigger problem than anyone wants to admit.
I agree 100%.
We see number one receivers across the league still perform with far worse quarterback play than what we know Joe Burrow is.
Yeah.
Perfect example, Justin Jefferson with Sam Darnold in Minnesota right now. Jordan Addison is out. Jordan Addison is hurt. That's a first-round pick, number 2, very legitimate wide receiver. And Justin Jefferson's still putting up killer numbers. You saw Tyreek Hill miss time. Jalen Waddle plays great. You see A.J. Brown out on Sunday Night Football. Devontae Smith over 100 yards. These elite receivers across the league are able to dominate without the number 2 next to them. Jamar Chase seems unable to do so. And I don't know that if that's on him for running poor routes or not getting open or whatever it is, phoning it in when he's double-teamed. I don't know what it is. But my main pushback right now is the scheme and the system. And you can't scheme Jamar Chase open? Who can you scheme open? How good of a play caller are you if you can't get Jamar Chase the ball?
I haven't seen a red zone target for Jamar Chase yet. I don't know if that's accurate, but I watched that entire Kansas City game. It seemed, and that's great for Yoshivas. Great that he gets every single red zone target.
Well, that's all he can do.
Correct. That's all he catches touchdowns or he drops balls. That's it. Right off the face mask. But it just seems to me, and again, I try not to bully Zach Taylor when I talk about him. But it seems like the game plan where I'm watching the Falcons on Monday night absolutely carve a defense, a clinical drive, Kirk Cousins to wide receivers who, again, aren't very good. I'm going to say that right now. Darnell Mooney, with all due respect, you're not a wide receiver 1. And somehow he's wide open down the field on a game-winning drive. So I don't know if it's a Zach Taylor issue. I don't know what the issue is. But seriously, at some point, Jamar Chase is going to have to be able to find some sort of opening in this offense. Zach Taylor, I hope, can scheme it up eventually.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Elliot. It is getting very tiresome that Jamar Chase is just having a bunch of clunker games. It feels like when you have such an explosive player on your team that you have to get him involved, feature him a lot more, and they just refuse to do so. Now, luckily, the Bengals have done well up to this point, I guess.
Yeah.
With Gesicki in the tight end room getting more involved. But at some point, when do we start looking at the coaching staff and start pointing the fingers at this coaching staff for not getting their best players involved. I'm already at that point. I think this last week they were fine with Jamar Chase just taking dink and dunks and trying to make stuff happen out of space. They never really tried to target him deep down the field. Now, whether that's a Joe Burrow thing or if that's just the coaching staff, they got to get him more involved. They just have to get him more involved.
Just 11 targets through 2 weeks for a guy that's asking for $40 million is insane. Why would you ever pay a guy that much money if you're not going to have your offense run through him? And that's what the Bengals should do with Jamar Chase, especially with T. Higgins out. If T. Higgins is in, then sure, divvy up the targets, run whatever the defense gives you. But when you have a number one wide receiver in there and everyone else is untrustworthy and incredibly young, you need to force feed him and make sure that thing gets off the ground. Because once the Bengals offense gets off the ground, it's wonderful. And once Jamar Chase gets these wheels rolling, I don't think he's going to stop. But he hasn't been able to get going yet, and that's the issue.
Offensive standouts through weeks 1 and 2. We've completed 2 weeks of the NFL season. Again, the pass catching room hasn't been great, but there's been some other standouts on this Bengals offense. Who do you guys got as one of the offensive MVPs through weeks 1 and 2?
I know I put Trent Brown down earlier, and I'll continue to do so, but the rest of the offensive line has been incredible so far. Orlando Brown has had 2 of the better starts he's had in a Bengals uniform through 2 weeks. He was incredible in week 1, the highest PFF graded Bengals player on offense in week 1, and then in week 2 he bounced back as well, being the highest graded player on the offensive line, putting together a great game against Chris Jones. Everything Chris Jones did against the Bengals was one-on-one against Trent Brown. Orlando Brown's been an absolute eraser at left tackle, and it's been great to see because when you spend that much money on a free agent player, like I said earlier, when you've already paid your quarterback, when you're going to be paying your wide receiver, you have to hit. There is no wiggle room to miss on an offensive tackle signing, especially when the Bengals offensive line was as bad as it was before Orlando Brown. He had to turn this around. He did so a little bit last year, and he's doing so again this year through 2 weeks. He was voted a captain for the first time, and I think he's playing like it.
Yeah, I'm going to go into the tight end room a little bit. They played fantastic week 2. I think many of you think I'm going to say Gesicki, but I'm going to go Eric All.
There we go.
I think he showed a lot, not just in the passing game, but in the run game as well, being a all-around good player as a tight end, being able to block and be able to catch down the field. That's going to be a vital piece to this offense moving forward. If he can continue to progress in this offense, I love what I see out of Eric All so far this year.
We showed a play on Tuesday night's Chatterbox Bengals live at 6 to 7 p.m. on Chatterbox's YouTube, where we broke down Eric All blocking on the second touchdown Joe throw to Yoshivas. He absolutely erased George Karlaftis one-on-one as a tight end. And if you don't know who George Karlaftis is, he was a rookie for the Chiefs a few years ago. He was an all-rookie pass rusher. He's at double-digit sacks both years in the league so far. He's absolutely insane. He picked up right where he left off in college. And we have a rookie tight end coming in and deleting the second-best pass rusher on the Super Bowl favorite. That's incredible, and that's the type of production that you need from mid-round picks to stay on top of the league.
We are Chatterbox Sports. We have a show in the mornings from 10 to 12, Off the Bench. You can see us there on YouTube. If you cannot watch on YouTube, 1 to 3, ESPN 1410, Wing AM in Dayton. We are on the radio as well. Any of the apps, the iHeartRadio app, any of the other radio apps that you can find.
Podcasts as well.
Podcasts, we are there as well. We have a Chatterbox Bengals podcast, an Off the Bench podcast. Any podcast you can find, we have at Chatterbox Bearcats. Bearcats have a team.
They do.
They have a football team.
They do.
They do.
They're fun to watch. But yeah, so go check us out. Any podcast you want, we've got it on Chatterbox Sports. Go search us up. What was that, Fetters? Oh, no, I'm not doing the OH thing. See, this is a Cincinnati bar. This is not an Ohio State bar. It's not a Xavier bar. That's a common misconception. There's a lot of Xavier pro people here, but this is a Cincinnati bar. So go Bearcats. Go. Tim's Bearcats back there. I see the Bearcats. I'm looking. Yeah, they found the one corner in the room where nobody looks. That's over here. What else is back here? Is that West High? You're right by the West High jersey. Yeah, everybody. So again, thank you for watching on YouTube. We have a great group, a great chat that we have, and the group is right here in front of us. So thank you very much. But moving on, Cincinnati Bengals, the defense, not great. Not at least on the run side of things. Rushing, allowing 160 yards a game on the ground through 2 weeks. Passing, they're only allowing 128 yards a game, if that's a massive positive. Has this been a better or worse start than you guys would have imagined through 2 weeks of this season?
Quite honestly, as bad as it might sound, I've been pretty excited with what I've seen from the defense so far. I knew the run defense was going to be a problem going in. If you listen to any preseason show we did, you can go all the way back to May. We've talked about how this run defense is going to be a problem, and boy, oh boy, has it been. But we knew that. We also thought the secondary could be a problem, and we couldn't have been more wrong. The secondary has been incredible so far.
One of the best catches I've ever seen.
Absolutely. Cam Taylor-Britt is locking himself in as a bona fide corner one in this league. He's been incredible since he came from Nebraska. And what do we always say? Former Husker, current Bengal, future star. That's exactly right. Cam Taylor-Britt's insane. He's going to be part of this core. When we talk about the core with the Bengals, we usually stop after the offensive side of the ball. Well, I think now we have some core guys on defense. I think Cam Taylor-Britt's one of them, and he's elevated his secondary to a level that I really didn't expect. The passing game defense early in the year, we held Mahomes to one of the worst games he's had in his career.
The second worst game in his career, the first worst game he got injured during the game.
2 interceptions, the third one that got called back, 2 touchdowns, one of which went to an offensive lineman on a cheat gimmick play.
That's right.
They weren't able to do anything through the air offensively. Granted, they were able to run for about 50 yards per carry, but we'll get there. We'll get there on the ground. I'm very, very encouraged what I've seen from the back end so far.
Casey.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the same points that Jacob just said there so eloquently. We all knew about the run D, and surprisingly, I mean, I know it's been bad, but the linebackers have really stepped up.
Yeah.
We were really worried about Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt. They currently are tied for second in tackles in the league so far.
Yeah.
That's kind of to be expected if your defensive line is all banged up like they are, but man, they're getting it done. The secondary looks phenomenal. I think what we saw the first 2 weeks, they have game planned much differently than they've done in the previous couple years. They're getting in 3 linebacker looks. We saw ADG have a great interception. Like they are changing up their scheme to not just be able to defend plays, but be able to take away plays. 3 turnovers against the Kansas City Chiefs. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
You can win ball games like that. Well, you're supposed to.
You're supposed to. You're supposed to win the game.
That was my biggest question coming in about this defense, too, was about Lou Anarumo, who we all adore, who we all know is the defensive coordinator that can lead us to a Super Bowl. He's that good. But he lost DJ Reader. And DJ Reader was an absolutely crucial piece to this defense. We ran a true nose tackle more than almost any team in the league.
Yep.
And that's because when you have a guy like DJ Reader, you run a true nose tackle. But when you don't, you don't. So I wanted to see how Lou was going to attack this defense, not being able to run the same stuff he's been comfortable in for the last couple of years. And he's done well so far. We've seen more Akeem Davis-Gaither through 2 weeks than I think we have through the last 2 seasons. And he's looked really good so far. Logan Wilson, the #1 graded linebacker in week 1 across the whole league at a 92. Jermaine Pratt, the #1 graded Bengals defender this week. Those are 2 guys that we extended to big long-term deals after the Super Bowl and then took massive steps back last year. You can't have that. I said with Orlando Brown's contract, once you sign the quarterback and you make other extensions, you have to hit. And if we miss on $20 million combined between Pratt and Logan Wilson, that's going to be something that's almost impossible to climb out of defensively. Having those 2 guys playing at the high level we know they can play at is going to make this defense floor much higher.
The defense just added a guy that's defensive. Nice, thank you, you got it. Defensive lineman Lawrence Guy is now a Cincinnati Bengal. This signing is going to help at least some of the injuries the Bengals have been dealing with on the defensive side of the football. Is this a good signing? Do you like this signing? Was he the best available? If out of all the free agents that you could have signed to help this position out, how do you feel about Lawrence Guy?
Yes. The short answer is yes. This is a great signing. There was a bunch of no names out there, but what they got was a veteran, a leader, and someone that has been playing at a very high level for most of their career. Now, a bit on the downswing, and he was not on a team before. But you look at his track record, he played on a really good defensive team on the Patriots. He's going to be a plug-and-play guy right away. He's going to know exactly what to do in this defense. I have no qualms about this signing whatsoever. The only other option was like getting Aaron Donald to come out of retirement.
I don't think Aaron Donald was coming out.
And that wasn't going to happen.
Unless there was some sort of competition Zach Taylor offered where he could swing his helmet at any of our players, Aaron Donald wasn't going to come to the Cincinnati Bengals. But nonetheless, the thing I noticed about him was the best ability. What is it, Jacob?
Availability.
It's availability.
That's right.
And the guy was always available last year. He's been available for a majority of his career. How important is that? How crucial is Lawrence Guy's role to the Cincinnati Bengals, at least in the short term?
He had 12 starts last year on our New England defense that was pretty stout. I know they were picking 3rd overall in the draft, but that's because they had one of the worst offenses of all time. That defense kept them in a lot of games, and Bengals fans know just how good that defense is because we saw remnants of it in Week 1. Zach Taylor talked about watching that film, getting ready for the Week 1 opener, and he said he saw Lawrence Guy all over the field when watching that Patriots defensive line, and that's great news for Bengals fans because if they knew who he was at that point, they certainly were excited to see him on the free agent market now with big-time injuries to the D-line. The most important thing is we have a body.
That's right.
Because at the end of last game, we quite literally did not.
That's correct.
The D-line that was on the field had to stay on the field because there were no rotational pieces.
There's nobody left.
There was nobody left.
That was it. Chris Jenkins noticeably practicing. He's limited.
Huge news.
Trey Hendrickson hasn't had any help whatsoever when it comes to getting to the quarterback. How important will it be to have Chris Jenkins back on the Cincinnati Bengals this season?
The Bengals front office recognized this run defense issue. They saw it in the offseason, and that's why we saw them take 2 D linemen high in the draft, one of which Chris Jenkins out of Michigan in the 2nd round, and then McKinley Jackson later in the draft, a true nose guard to try to alleviate some of that DJ Reader loss in the middle out of Mississippi State. Well, they've both been hurt. McKinley Jackson hurts his knee in training camp, hasn't played yet. Chris Jenkins, surgery on his thumb, just now getting back into practice. I don't expect him to play on Monday. Certainly would be a huge addition to this team because he was supposed to be the guy behind B.J. Hill and Sheldon Rankins that gave us that really good depth instead of just scratching the bottom of the barrel with free agents. We got incredibly lucky with Lawrence Guy being on the market and being able to come in and play at a championship level right away because that's not very easy to find. If you're a team like the Panthers or the Giants and you need someone to fill in some snaps because you don't have bodies, that's a little bit easier to find because you just want to run plays.
100%.
The Bengals actually want to win games and compete for a Super Bowl. And it's a lot harder to find those guys on the open market. Lawrence Guy, absolutely one of those. Played almost 50% of New England's defensive snaps last year. He'll be able to slide in seamlessly. But Trey Hendrickson, a stat we haven't gotten to talk about because we weren't here in between Week 1 and Week 2. Sam Hubbard. Pass rush wins. Not a lot you can find.
No.
Not a lot you can find.
You and Reed have been out on Sam Hubbard for a little bit now.
I know this town loves Sam Hubbard, and rightfully so. He's a Moeller kid. He went to Ohio State.
No Moeller on the wall, by the way. There's every other school's on the wall. No Moeller.
He's a great guy. He's certainly a great guy. He's just not a great pass rusher. And when you're a team that's trying to win a Super Bowl, like I've said time and time again, you can't have average players at marquee positions. And there's not many positions that are more crucial than pass rush. Sam Hubbard's not getting the job done. When Myles Murphy's ready to go, he needs to be in there.
Defensive standouts through Weeks 1 and Week 2. Casey, I'll start with you. The defense, say whatever you want about it. I think for me personally, after Week 1, I would say it was okay. Week 2 against Kansas City, shutting down the best quarterback in the NFL completely and utterly. I'm going to say the defense has looked improved at least from the end of last season when nobody could stop anybody. Casey, defensive standouts for the first 2 weeks of the season for the Bengals.
So I got two.
If you steal mine, I'm going to be mad.
No, I'm not going to.
Okay.
I don't think here.
Okay.
I think both of them had great big plays in Week 2 versus the Chiefs. And I mentioned him before, ADG. I don't know why we didn't talk about that pre-show, but yeah, I mean, he's a standout guy, and he's been phenomenal for this team, creating turnovers. He's been all over the field, up and down, making plays. I mean, we were sitting here having a conversation of should he be maybe starting. He's been playing so good. So, and then Ken Taylor-Britt. I mean, that interception is phenomenal. I mean, just doing the Odell Beckham interception, what more can you ask from your corner one?
Go ahead.
I'm going to the other side of the field, sticking at the cornerback position. I'm saying Dax Hill. I've beaten it over how many times now with how big of a move from safety to corner that is for Dax Hill. When you take a player at 31 in the draft, you're trying to have someone contribute to the team right away, no doubt about it. But when you're looking at it from looking back, hindsight, at that pick, you're going to look at positional value.
Yeah.
And as a team that's just entering the Super Bowl window, the Bengals drafted a player that plays at an incredibly invaluable? That's a word, right?
That's a word. That's
incredibly
a word.
invaluable position.
You went to St. X.
That's right. They teach that at Elder.
Well, they teach us. They teach us at Elder.
Incredibly, not a very valuable position, safety. And he was trying to fill massive shoes in Jesse Bates. Now he's moved over to corner and he's playing better than he ever played at safety. He's looked great so far. He slipped up very early in that Week 1 game. He had a couple bad plays against the Patriots where Jacoby Brissett and that offense was attacking him. And then he strengthened up in the second half, shut them down, and then played a great game on Sunday against the Chiefs. What Dax Hill's been able to do just 2 games into the cornerback position is incredible. He played a lot of slot at Michigan, but not a whole lot of the outside, and that's what he's playing in the NFL, which is a huge ask to run with a lot of those guys.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the team we just played. If he's lined up on the outside, he's either running with the fastest receiver in the history of the NFL in Xavier Worthy, or a guy who's had 100 yards in week 1 and 75 out of the slot in Rashee Rice. 2 dominant receivers early in their young careers. That's hard for a young guy to match up with, especially a guy who hasn't played more than 4 quarters at outside corner in the NFL. He's done a great job so far. He's been incredible.
Well, the defense has a test. It's a different kind of test. The Commanders, they come off a game where they scored on every single drive they had against the New York Football Giants. 7 offensive drives, 7 field goals. Week 1, their field goal kicker missed 2 kicks. Let's go find another. They did. He nails 7 field goals in his debut with the Commanders. The Bengals defense are the merchants of holding teams to 3 points. They hold teams, everybody is seeming like to field goals left and right. Nobody's getting when they get in the red zone, the Bengals defense is going to stop. But now you're going to have to stop the run. Jaden Daniels has rushed 26 times himself, the quarterback for the Commanders, including 16 times in week 1. Michael Vick, in his entire career, never carried the ball that many times in a game ever. He did it his first game as an NFL starting quarterback. What do you expect? What is the game plan? What are we trying to do against Jaden Daniels? And at least for me, make him throw it.
It's incredibly simple.
Make him throw the ball.
It's incredibly simple. That's exactly it. You make Jaden Daniels beat you with his arm. And I don't think he can do it.
No.
At least not yet. I'm very high on Jaden Daniels for his career. I think he's going to be a great quarterback. But Cam Taylor-Britt said it after the practice today in a press conference. He said they keep it incredibly easy on Jaden Daniels. That offense is very simple, not very unique. And that's why he's been good so far.
Do you like the smack talk? Do you like the smack talk?
I love the smack talk.
You like the smack talk?
I love it.
It's better when you win after the smack talk,
That's
though.
right.
It's so much better.
I think for him to talk smack, that interception gives him a few weeks of leeway.
You know what? You're right. The interception has gifted him an entire season of smack talk. It's the best catch I've ever seen.
But look, I think he's right. I think there's a difference between talking smack and telling the truth. Could he have said the words in a way that made it delivery a little bit lighter? Sure, maybe. But I don't think it's rocket science to say Washington's dumbing down the offense for their rookie quarterback. Everyone does that, and that's what they're doing. My biggest fear isn't Jaden Daniels, though. It's a guy UC fans know all too well. It's Brian Robinson.
There we go.
Brian Robinson's averaging 6 yards per carry so far this year. 6 yards per carry.
That's pretty good.
And they have a pretty good change of pace back as well. I don't know if you know him, little unknown guy named Austin Eckler, who's been pretty good in this league for a while.
He's washed.
Washed is fine, but washed as a starting running back and washed as a change of pace second running back is a little bit different. I think this backfield really, really scares me. The Bengals' biggest deficiencies are the Commanders' greatest strengths.
That's right.
And the stuff the Bengals are really good at, the Commanders don't even try to do.
I was going to say, Terry McLaurin is the one notable pass catcher. 700-year-old Zach Ertz is on the team. And outside of that, I was looking at the wide receivers and the Commanders. I was looking at the depth chart. Casey, is there anybody out of that group that scares you at all?
Just Scary Terry.
Just Scary Terry.
But again, Cam Taylor-Britt, I mean, he's been lights out. He's going to be probably erasing Scary Terry. I'm more concerned, again, about this run. The run game that they're going to employ, it just seems like they have been gashing teams in the run game. And I don't know if the Bengals are going to have the bodies to be able to stop it. They can limit it as much as they can. They gotta start playing heavy boxes. They gotta start really trying to force Jaden Daniels to throw over top. And I think we got the guys in the secondary to make him pay for it too. So
one thing that is reassuring when looking at the Commanders, these statistics are a little bit daunting with how good of a running team they are. How many of those yards came against a pretty crappy Giants defense? Significant amount. Brian Robinson had over 130 yards in the first game. You talked about how much Jaden Daniels was running. Yeah. That's because they couldn't get their running back game off the ground early in that game against the Buccaneers. I think we could be getting a little bit more nervous than we need to be, just looking at the outcome of that Giants game and how much they controlled that line of scrimmage because, spoiler alert, there's 31 teams in the league that can control the line of scrimmage against the Giants.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly worried about the Giants being a contender at the end of the year. Not that the Commanders would be either, but certainly important to look at who teams are playing. I still think the Commanders are a big threat, and if we learned anything about Week 1, it's don't overlook an NFL team.
Any given Sunday in the NFL, as my friend Zach likes to say. Shout out to Zach.
That's a Zach original.
It is a Zach original. He was the one who created that.
Interesting.
He wasn't even listening. You're right. Michael Ackley was listening. For the Bengals, though, you mentioned it. You got to stop stop the run, the way to do that, in my opinion, is at least to get up early and often.
That's right.
Take the ball. If you win the coin toss, get the football, go down and score. You go up 10-0, they can't run it anymore.
No.
Or at least they can't run it on the ground. Maybe they'll scramble.
They
Maybe
can't run to win.
Correct. They can't run to win.
They could run to cover.
They could. Listen, covering's a different thing.
That's right.
Bengals are facing a defense that has allowed a 127.6 passer rating.
Yeah.
That's the worst in the NFL through 2 weeks. Washington has also allowed the most touchdown passes in the league, in a league where you haven't seen a ton of touchdown passes. The 9th best completion percentage, the 3rd most 20-plus yard passes. The Bengals offense needs to be able to carve this defense up. Out of every defensive category there is against the pass, the Commanders are almost dead last.
Yeah.
So the Bengals need to be ready. You need to throw downfield. Enough with the dink and dunks. Go downfield and get the job done, right?
Yeah, we've seen Jamar Chase put up 2 stinkers, to put it lightly.
Bad stinkers.
His yardage prop is back up to where it normally is. It's at 84. That tells you Vegas is expecting a bounce back from this Bengals offense as well, and whether that's because they actually think we're just going to get our legs under us and look like the team a lot of people expected, or it's a representation of how bad this Commanders defense is, I'm not sure I care. What's the difference to us?
Doesn't matter to me.
Just go out there and attack. And I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier in the show with how bad Trenton Irwin's been, how bad Tanner Hudson was in week 1. You need to scheme up your best players. And I think in a lot of these situations, your best player might not be Jamar Chase. With T. Higgins back, if people are still rolling coverages to Jamar, begging you to beat them with number 5, just do that.
Yeah.
I don't want the Bengals to listen to fans and get in their own heads and say, oh, we need to get Jamar the ball more. Even though I would like that, and I think it would certainly help this offense, we still need to take what the defense is giving us, let us develop, and especially against a team like the Commanders when there should be a lot that the defense is giving you.
If T. Higgins is available, the Bengals need to score 35 points.
Absolutely.
I'm going to say 35 points. Casey, tell me they're going to score 35 points.
Well, they're certainly going to put up some points, Elliot. 35's a lot in the NFL.
What's a number where you're concerned? How many points would the Bengals have to score where you're very concerned about this?
Less than 3 offensive touchdowns.
Less than 3 touchdowns?
Yep.
I think that's fair.
Offensive.
Listen, you don't have to
Pick
worry.
6 doesn't count.
You don't have to scheme it.
Doesn't count.
You don't have to scheme against Taylor Swift this week. There will be no Taylor Swift on the TV.
That's right.
It's just a Bengals butt whooping against the Commanders. So now we're going to move on to one of my favorite segments, Casey.
This is the best segment of the show.
This is the best segment in the show. If you don't know me, here's the thing. I'm an idiot. And I do these silly segments. I'm a bad gambler. I'm a very, very bad gambler. But this is a segment dedicated to gambling, ironically, because it's a bunch of children writing into our show from around the tri-state area. They write us letters about sports betting, and we answer them. But we do have a sounder for this. You're not going to be able to see this on the show, but you will be able to hear it right now. So this is the opening to the segment here. Let's play it. This is our mailbag segment. Sing along if you know it.
We just got a letter. We just got a letter. We just got a letter. I wonder who it's from.
Wow. Thank you, Elliot. That was myself singing that song. Now, we have, without further ado here, we have little Colin from Mr. Farrell's class. Little Colin from Mr. Farrell's class.
Is this the same class we were at last week?
Yeah, it was Will Farrell last week.
Will
it's
wrote
now
Miss Farrell's
Colin
class
Farrell.
last
He likes penguins. He likes penguins. Thank you, Nathan, whoever that was over there. Little Colin is a standout football player at Delhi Middle School. We all like Delhi Middle School. He says FanDuel has suspended his father's account for wagering entire paychecks on receivers to score touchdowns.
Oh, man.
But there has been a record low of passing touchdowns through week 2, so he's betting all this money, and he's not winning anything.
Oh, no.
He is starting to gamble on little Colin's passing props during his 3rd grade football games. His dad hasn't won those either, so now they don't get Christmas this year.
Oh, no.
Who should Colin's dad gamble on in tonight's game between the Jets and the Patriots?
Well, that's a wonderful question, Elliot. If I had to think about it, I think you might have some first touchdown scorers for him.
I think I do.
And by some, I mean 5 or 6.
Listen, I'm not a good gambler, and that's because I bet everybody to score first. And you get a lot of value when you bet everybody to score first. So here we go. Patriots, the defense, the entire defense. You get them all. Can you imagine the value? Every player on the Patriots defense to score a touchdown, plus 1,900 to score them first. Alan Lazard, first touchdown, plus 1,300. Mike Williams, first touchdown. I think I have who is it? Who's the backup running back for the Jets? Don't even know his name.
I have Braylon Allen, first touchdown.
Braylon Allen, first touchdown. I wrote that one as well. We also have the Hunter Henry, tight end for the Patriots to score first as well. Some of my many bets. I guess I'll just read them all too as well. We have Mike Williams Williams under 27.5 yards, and we have Garrett Wilson under 66.5 yards. Jets minus 65.5 or
65.5. Holy cow!
6.5. No alternate spreads.
What a game we got
no
going
alternate
tonight.
spreads. Now, if you're counting up, that's about 15 bets, and let's say my unit's $1 because my parents are here. Casey, what do we got for tonight?
Oh, man, I've got a few bets my own as well. The under on the game is 38.5. I took that. No touchdowns in the game. I sprinkled a little money on that. That's plus 3,800. I think this game's going to be a stinker, fellas.
I like that. I like that a lot.
I got another one here for you. Any quarter to end scoreless is plus 200. I love that one. That's the one I'm hammering right now.
We all predict this will be the worst game of the season.
I think that's what we're predicting across the board.
Okay,
here,
that's fair. Sorry to interrupt.
I got Greg Zuerlein, 1.5 over on field goals. A lot of field goals going to be scored here, and a lot of bad offense. And that's all I got for my bets of the week.
Jacob?
You touched on my big one of the night, and it's Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry's going to score a touchdown. He's going to score the first touchdown, and he's going to go over 33.5 yards. And that's because he gets 40% of the Patriots' targets. 40% of Jacoby Brissett's passes go towards Hunter Henry.
It's all going to him.
You just kind of spin the wheel and point and pick first touchdown scores. I look at numbers and analytics, and we end up at the same point.
Yeah, here's the thing about analytics. It takes a little bit longer to get all that information, so I just bet what I like. I just flip a coin, really. So outside of that, now we go to our second favorite segment. Casey, are you ready for this?
I'm ready for
This
it.
is the
This
week,
is big time.
The week 3. This is the week 3 stink list. So
That's
this is our second stink list of the year, but our week 3 stink list. The best and worst teams in the NFL through the first 2 weeks.
Just to refresh everyone's memory, the week 1 stink list going into week 1, the 2-0 Saints with the best offense in the league was at the bottom.
The bottom.
They were very far at the bottom.
They've scored 95 points in 2 games.
Derek Carr is the MVP favorite.
Yeah, and to lead this off, guess who's in the exquisite category?
Who?
The Saints.
There we go.
Wow,
There we
who
go.
could have guessed that?
There we go.
Led by a gritty quarterback in Derek Carr. I've been really impressed with them over the last 2 weeks. The new look offense ran by Clint Kubiak has basically revolutionized the putrid offense from a year ago and allowed guys like Alvin Kamara, Rashid Shaheed, and Chris Olave to really shine. Not to mention that their defense, it's really been great. They're able to get after the quarterback and shut down the run. That's a really good combination on defense. I really like what the Saints are doing so far. They're in my top category, the exquisite category.
They've been able to shut down my wallet as well, but please continue.
Yeah, and the next category we have is fresh, and I got the Arizona Cardinals sitting there. They went toe-to-toe with Buffalo in week 1. They almost snuck out a win there. Unfortunately, Josh Allen is who he is and was able to get that win. But then they demolished their rivals, the Rams, in week 2, absolutely putting up a clinic against them. You know, the Cardinals a couple years ago were actually a pretty good football team. And with
Then
Kyler Murray,
Call of Duty came out.
and then Call of Duty came out, and Kyler Murray decided that he was going to play a lot of Call of Duty, and they
Big
didn't
release
look
coming
very
up.
good.
Big release
Big
coming
release
up.
is coming up, but as of right now, Kyler Murray looks like he is the best quarterback in the NFL right now. Last week, he was 17 of 21, 266 yards, 3 touchdowns, and adding 60 yards on the ground. He had a perfect game. His jersey is in the Hall of Fame because of how good of a game he had against the Rams. That is unbelievable, impressive. I think the Cardinals deserve to be in the fresh category this week. Gotta stick them to it.
I just want to say, the Rams lost that game 41-10. I had Rams to win that game by 6.5. They lost by 40. Continuing on.
Continuing on, the odorless category, the one that has neither a good smell or a bad smell, I got the Bengals. I mean, they did everything they needed to do except pick up the win, and they looked pretty good throughout the week. This week, I don't know what much else to say. We've talked about it all day today. The team just looks like they're ready to go for the remainder of the season. I think that they are going to get it done against the Commanders on Monday.
Homer. They're heckling. See, it's not fun when people heckle. It's not fun when they heckle.
It's a little different when you're not in the studio. You can't
That's
hear
right.
it. Let's move on. The stink part of this list. The Jacksonville Jaguars.
They do stink.
Stink.
Move them to London.
They almost made
Hello.
it further down this list, but I reserved it for 2 smellier teams. It's honestly really simple, guys. When your franchise quarterback comes up to the podium at the end of a miserable ball game and says, and I quote, "I'm shocked by how we played. We suck right now," it's pretty self-explanatory why you're in the stink category
Not
on
great.
the stink list. Moving on, the Tennessee Titans have something bad brewing right now.
Ooh.
They have something real bad.
Does
They're
Brian
in the
Callahan
stench.
hate his quarterback?
Brian
I think he
Callahan
does.
hates his
I think
quarterback.
Brian Callahan hates Will Levis.
I think he does. They have a nasty stench going on right now. The quarterback position is one of the most important positions on the field, and Will Levis has looked abysmal. He's currently on a historic run for some of the funniest still frames that you'll ever see in the NFL, to the oh no pick six and to the Superman fumble. Will Levis has been horrible. Brian Callahan, I mean, he was questioning his maturity. I mean, how bad do you have to be where your own coach is questioning your maturity? Titans, they've got a nasty stench
I've never seen a quarterback get called out like that by his head coach in a post-game press conference, ever.
Nothing helps a young quarterback's confidence like blaming 2 losses in a row on him.
Zach Taylor would never do it to Burrow because Burrow pays that guy's salary. But rolling on here.
Rolling on, and of course we have the final category, the nauseating category.
Who could this be?
And some of you might wonder who could be in this category. I think it's pretty obvious. It's the same team. It's the Cleveland Browns.
That's right.
They have looked horrible. They won a game against the Jags, who stink, but man, Deshaun Watson, I've never seen a more terrible quarterback over the last few seasons. He just looked absolutely horrendous.
At least they're not paying him a lot of money.
That's right.
Oh, yeah. Not a whole lot of money. Just
Bad
$250
quarterback,
million
worst person.
guaranteed.
Yeah, people forget about that.
People do forget about that.
Yeah, so the Browns, nauseating. Tennessee Titans, stench. Jacksonville Jaguars, stink. Bengals, odorless. Arizona Cardinals are fresh. The New Orleans Saints lead the top of the category and the stink list at the exquisite category after week 3 of the NFL season.
There we go. How about that? Everybody, again, thank you for coming out tonight. We are Chatterbox Sports, off the bench. We are Chatterbox Bengals here tonight. Jacob and Craig will be live on Monday. Monday for the entirety of the game. Jacob will be live.
I'll
and then
be
the
live.
Post-game.
Kickoff to final whistle. Kickoff to final whistle on Monday. I'll be live streaming the game on the Chatterbox YouTube. And then right afterwards, joined by Craig Sandlin for a post-game show breaking down everything that happened. So make sure, check out the Chatterbox YouTube and join us for that on Monday. Not Sunday,
That's right.
on Monday.
This will be available in podcast form again, as well as everything else we do. We're on the radio as well. Check us out if you don't know us. If you do know us, like many of you do in here, thank you very much for coming out to support us tonight. It is a beautiful Thursday. We're getting ready for Thursday night football here at Champions Grille. Thank you to Champions. Thank you to Tim. If Brooke is out there right now, I know Brooke is going to run over here as soon as I say the name. Here she comes.
She's got her weekly spot.
That's right. She gets one weekly spot. I said she could have it.
That's
so
right.
I'm going to give her the headset. So here we go. You have to do a shameless plug for Champions. Tim told me if this one's bad, you're fired.
Oh, there we go.
Here we go.
Hey guys, I'm Brooke. Come to Champions all the time, but actually come on Sundays because we have 6 for $12 buckets. Hooday, let's go.
We'll take it.
We'll take it.
We'll take it.
Brooke, do you want to do a hooday? You want to do a hooday for the people? Do you want to do a hooday? Do you know what hooday is?
Just hooday?
Yeah, you're just going to say hooday, and then they're going to say hooday back. You ready?
Hooday.
Hooday.
Here we go.
That was great, Brooke. That was great, Brooke. I don't know if you have a job, but that was still great. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. We are off the bench. We are Chatterbox Sports, Chatterbox Bengals, Chatterbox Reds, Chatterbox Bearcats. We are all the same. Thank you very much for coming out tonight. Casey, Jacob, thank you for running the keys and playing the sound and setting all this up. Jacob, thank you for having your knowledge of Bengals.
Of course.
And thank you to me, I guess. Shout out to me.
Thank you guys for watching.
Everybody, have a great night. That's it.